Welcome, everyone, to the 9th episode of the Bracket Report, which is in its 3rd season. It's a production of Delphi Bracketology, sponsored by Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. Joining me today is Dave Gilbert and senior editor Cade Nelson. Make sure you check out our work on our website, delphibracketology.com, and follow us on Twitter for the remainder of this week, as the NCAA committee will be selecting their 68 teams for the NCAA tournament on Sunday. We'll give you all the updates that we possibly can all week long in those two places. But we begin every week with our State of Indiana report. Dave, your Purdue Boilermakers, Big Ten champions, how are they looking?
Purdue had a good week. They won at Wisconsin to win the Big Ten championship outright. And then they finished off the season with a little senior day celebration with a victory over Illinois. It wasn't pretty. They almost blew a 21-point half-point lead, but were able to hold on there at the end. And so, we still have them on the one line, but we'll have a little bit of a discussion later on because UCLA is kind of right on their heels right now for that last 1 seed.
The Indiana Hoosiers had an up-and-down week. They went into last week as a 3 seed, and then they proceeded to lose at home to Iowa by 22, which really hurt their metrics. The net rating and Ken Pom all saw that drop. And so they're probably likely on the 4 seed line. They bounced back and won in overtime on their senior night against Michigan, which was much needed to protect their spot on the 4 seed line. Cade, a couple of local teams that had good seasons.
Mm-hmm. Indiana State, we left off last episode with them being the 5th seed in the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, playing 12th seed Evansville. We kind of figured that they would comfortably win that game, which they did. They beat Evansville by 39. Then they went on to play the number 4 seed Belmont. We knew that would be a little tougher for them, seeing as in the regular season they lost to Belmont by 1. This time they drew the better straw and advanced to the semifinal, which they won 94-91. And then they played the number 1 seed in Bradley, and there they unfortunately lost by a free throw that ended up with 6 seconds left, and then they just couldn't pull off the patented March Madness buzzer beater to advance. But Drake would eventually win that tournament, and they punched their ticket to the national bracket. So then for Ball State, they're the 4 seed versus Ohio, and they'll play the winner of Toledo and Miami to advance in their conference tournament.
All right, so every week we do teams that are moving up and teams that are moving down. Right back to you, Cade. Who's moving up in the bracket for you?
Yeah, I think it's Marquette this week. They were being talked about maybe being on the bottom of the 3 seed line, and now I think they're comfortably in the number 1 position for that seed line. Since February 11th, they've gone 6-0, being able to pick up 2 quad 1 wins and 3 road wins. So those are 2, major things that really help improve a resume. So I think they've solidified their spot on the 3 seed line, and they might be pushing some teams on the 2 seed line to make sure they play well so they don't drop for a strong Marquette team.
Dave, who do you got moving up?
This week I went with Penn State. Whenever you're a team on the bubble, you always want to pile up those wins. And they had 2 quad 1 wins this week at Northwestern. And then home versus Maryland after having a big second-half comeback, winning both of those games on last-second shots. And so they went from the outside looking in to being in the tournament. And we've even talked, this morning at our meeting about possibly moving them in to being a little bit safer.
Yeah, the Fighting Shrewsburys really like what Penn State is doing. They might have to have a pretty good week to maintain. I didn't put anything on the script, but I'm going to go with West Virginia. West Virginia has moved from a team that was in the first 4 play-in game to now even being considered for the 9 seed. They got a really nice road win at Iowa State last Monday. That followed up a tough loss by 2 at Kansas. And then they beat Kansas State at home, and Kansas State is a 3 seed. And so I think those combinations have West Virginia safely in. Another win or 2 in the Big 12 tournament would be good for them. But if we have teams moving up, we got teams that are moving down. And so let's go to some teams that have struggled here recently, starting with you, Cade.
Yeah, so my team moving down this week is Illinois. Recently, they've gone 4-5, dropping games to Iowa, Purdue, Indiana, Penn State, and Ohio State. That's a pretty bad loss at the time. Hate to talk about my Buckeyes like that, but that is the way it is. In all of those games they lost, they were all on the road, so that just shows that Illinois hasn't been able to, play on the road very well. So being ready to play in the tournament away from home, although it is in Illinois State. Not playing in their home court might be tough for them. Also, their net has decreased in the past weeks. They've went 26 net, 26 net, 22, 27, 34, and now 33. So consistently, their net has dropped. Also, they don't have that many quad one wins. So I think I kind of compare them to North Carolina, at least in that perspective of their resume. If you're going to punish a team for not having a lot of quad one wins, you might as well do it to Illinois too, since they don't have much else to really back it up.
Dave, who's your team moving down?
My team moving down this week is Tennessee. At the reveal a couple weeks ago, they were the top 3 seed on the seed line. We think they might be dropping down to the bottom of the 3 seed and maybe even a 4 seed. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games. And probably even a bigger loss was their point guard, Zakai Ziegler, who got injured in their game against Arkansas this past week. And so we just don't know how the committee will take that into consideration.
And they might end up on the 4 seed line. For me, Pittsburgh is the team that's following. They've lost 3 out of their last 5. They have 4 quad 1 wins, and they have 3 quad 2 wins, but they have some losses they're building up, and they need a win in the tournament in order to stay in. And there are some teams that are already in because conference tournament started last week. Farley Dickinson, Northeast Conference, Southeast Missouri for the Ohio Valley, UNC Asheville for the Big South, Kennesaw State in the ASUN. Drake is the automatic qualifier for the Missouri Valley. Furman joined the tournament last night from the Southern Conference, and Louisiana from the Sun Belt. All others will be determined later this week, and by Sunday we'll have all of the teams set. But after we come back from a break, we're going to reveal our top 4 seeds and have some serious bubble talk, so stay with us.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. That's the finish. You get a layup taken and an and one. Out of here.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni along with Dave Gilbert and Cade Nelson. You're listening to or watching the Bracket Report sponsored by Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo. And now it's time to give you our first 4 seeds. And we'll run through that quickly and discuss some questions that we have, and then we're going to head to the bubble. Our number 1 seed line is Kansas, Houston, Alabama, and Purdue. Gentlemen, Purdue holding on is being pushed by UCLA. Quickly, who do you have, and do they stay there? Dave, we'll start with you.
I may be a little bit biased being a Purdue guy, but I still think Purdue is the last number 1 seed. When you look at the different measurements, Purdue has a better strength of schedule overall than UCLA. They still have a better road and neutral court record. They have more quad 1 wins than UCLA has, and they probably have better quad 1 wins with wins over Gonzaga and Duke on a neutral court, as well as a win over Marquette, who's probably a 3 seed for us. So I just think they have better quality wins as well.
Cade, your thoughts on the Purdue-UCLA discussion?
Yeah, I think the same things as Mr. Gilbert here. Purdue has more quad 1A wins than UCLA, and when you still have 7 quad 1 wins like UCLA, you can still have the ability to get those top tier quad 1 wins, and UCLA just hasn't been able to do that, and Purdue has. So I think that stat alone says Purdue's on the 1 seed line.
One thing we're hearing is that Purdue has a quad 2 loss, and they do, but that quad 2 loss is to Rutgers, whose net is 37, which is barely over the cut line. And when Purdue got beat by Rutgers, that was a quad 1 loss, and now Rutgers has an injury. So this was the Rutgers before the injury that came into Mackey and beat. The Rutgers afterwards has really struggled, and Rutgers might not be in the tournament. We'll talk about that when we go on the bubble. So I don't look at that quad 2 as being a determining factor why UCLA should be better. I think the talk of UCLA is because they beat Arizona, and it's a recency bias. I think UCLA has the better body, or Purdue has the better body of work all around. Our 2 seed lines then will be UCLA, Texas, Baylor, Arizona. The question will be Arizona with 4 quad 2 losses. Do they hold off Marquette? Cade, your thoughts on the Marquette versus Arizona seed line?
Yeah, I would say just looking at Arizona, the way their net is better, non-conference strength of schedule is better, and they have 13 quad 1 and 2 wins. I just think, not necessarily having to look at the quality of those quad 1 wins. I think that 8-2 record in the quad 1, along with their net being just simply better than Marquette's, I think that keeps them in.
I'm going to take another look at that today and tomorrow when we meet, and we're having our official meeting where we scrub. I think that one probably needs to be looked at. I agree with Cade. Right now I'm leaning Arizona for the same reasons that Cade has said, but I do think Marquette, some people have Kansas State taking over the 2 seed line because of their 9 quad 1 wins in their play in the Big 12. I think Kansas State has a really bad non-conference strength of schedule. I think that's going to keep them on the 3 line. But we may have to look at Marquette versus Arizona. Dave, your thoughts?
I tend to agree. I think we just have to keep Arizona there for right now with the things that you guys mentioned. They also had a slightly better strength of schedule as well as just a slightly better road and neutral record as well.
So that's something that our group will be discussing. Again, check us out on Delphi Bracketology later on in the week to see what our decision was. So we have Marquette, Kansas State, Gonzaga, and UConn on the 3 seed line. UConn is a recent move up. They were not even in the top 4 when the NCAA revealed a couple of weeks ago, but we think Connecticut is playing more like Connecticut of the beginning of the season when they were thought to be a 1 seed line. And then, we've had and Tennessee can be there. That's the question, too. Is it Connecticut or Tennessee? When I made the script, I think we had Connecticut, and I think we've moved Tennessee back in after this morning's meeting. But either Connecticut or Tennessee will be that last 3 seed line. So, fellas, let's talk about that. Cade, your thoughts on whether it's Tennessee or UConn on the 3 seed line?
Yeah, without having any prior knowledge about the recent injury to Tennessee, I think their quad 1A wins over Alabama, Kansas, and Texas, along with their net and non-conference strength of schedule, all of those factors just being better than UConn's, along with not having a quad 3 loss. Although that quad 3 loss doesn't really hurt UConn a lot, I think I really like Tennessee's wins, and obviously their net is one of the better in the country, so that definitely jumps them up for me.
Dave, thoughts, Tennessee, UConn?
I like UConn for that last spot. They did have that kind of mid-season swoon where they dropped, 6 of their 8 games there. But since then, they've been on a roll. They've won 8 out of 9. They're 9-5 in the road neutral record. They also have some good quality wins. They beat Alabama as well. But I think their win against Alabama looks a little bit better because it was on a neutral court as opposed to Tennessee beating Alabama at home. They also have a neutral court win over Iowa State, who's 19 in the net. So I think some of their bigger wins are neutral court, which I think the committee might value a little bit more than home wins.
So, yeah, I'm leaning UConn. That number 3 is next to Tennessee net. Net is not the absolute, but that's a 1 seed net rating to drop them to the 4. But their injury, I think, might be the determining factor. Just like I think UCLA has an injury to their second leading scorer is going to keep UCLA on the 2 seed line as well, if people thought that was razor thin. So we have Indiana, Xavier, and Virginia. We think those teams are pretty much locked in on the 4. We do not see a lot of pressure from the 5s to break in to the 4s, but we're going to take a look at that as well. A lot of these seeds, once we pick them tomorrow night, will not move for us at Delphi Bracketology because recently the NCAA committee has shared its procedure of voting. And by Wednesday night, they have 24 or 25 locked teams in the top 6 seed lines, and they start seeding them as Wednesday night. But the conference tournaments start Wednesday and then Thursday, and if they're locked in, I think you'll just see very slight movement of maybe one team and another team just switching spots is all you'll see based on conference tournaments. We don't like that as fans, but that is, I think, the process of the committee. And then they vote in the other 20-some teams into the field by Friday night, early Saturday morning, and the rest of the time, Saturday and Sunday, is putting them in the right order, 1 through 68. And I don't think there'll be a lot of moves. So one game is only 1/31st or 1/32nd of a whole resume. despite what ESPN and CBS and everyone will try to tell you about, oh, these games are going to make a big difference. There's slight differences. Don't expect too many moves, especially in seed lines 1 through 6 from where they would be right now. But, fellas, let's go to the bubble. We have teams on the 10 seed line and the 11 seed line. Those teams are all teams that could be in or could be out. That's the bubble, a 10-team bubble. The teams on the 11 seed line are in more danger. And then we have about 4 or 5 teams that have a chance to be considered in the tournament. So let's go quickly on take one team that is in our last 10 and talk about their resume. Cade, go ahead and start.
Yeah, I'll start us off with Mississippi State. Their positives are they have 2 good wins over Marquette and Arkansas. They have a decent, overall strength of schedule at 42. And then some of their negatives are they have 1 bad loss and a bad non-conference strength of schedule, as well as a below average net with a average road record. So I think those wins over Marquette and Arkansas are able to keep them in, and their net, although it is maybe a little under the weather, I think it is good enough that they are in the tournament.
Dave, you have an interesting team, one that we aren't very high on overall, but we do think the committee will put them in, and we are trying to guess what the committee, not do what the Delphi people want, but do guess what the committee. Who do you got?
Yeah, I chose to take a look at Utah State. They have a really good net at 21. Their strength of schedule is decent at 79 for a non-Power 5 team. That's not bad. They have a good road and neutral record at 10-5. However, they only have 1 quad 1 win, and they also have 2 bad losses in quad 4. And if it was my decision, I probably wouldn't have them in because I like to value wins. You have to beat somebody, I would say. But this is the measuring tool that the committee came up with. So we think that they're going to value that net, and that net of 21 is going to keep them in because the last few years there hasn't been a team with a 20 net that's been left out of the tournament.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to Penn State. We talked about them earlier as moving up, but Penn State's on that list. Are they in or are they out? And they've won 5 out of their last 6 after losing 4 in a row. They had a horrible loss against Rutgers where they were up 19 and blew a lead late. They play Illinois, who they've already beaten twice in the tournament, but I think they are in, even with the loss to Illinois, because they have done some work. They have 5 wins in quad 1, 1 game under 500, 4 wins, so that's 9 total combined wins. There are teams with 7 and 6 that are in this list of 10, and I think that's going to carry some weight. Their strength of schedule numbers out of conference and their net not so good at 56 and 273. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them left out, but I also think they have a really good chance of getting in. Let's go south of the cut line, fellas. Teams that are out that you want to talk about that might be able to get in. Let's go with you, Cade, first.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about North Carolina and just the fact that I'm happy that they're not, or I think they're not going to be in, because it just made our job a little easier that Duke kind of cleaned the slate for North Carolina. We said last week that North Carolina probably had to beat Duke and then maybe win a game in their conference tournament to be in, and unfortunately they didn't beat Duke. So they're still 1-9 in quad 1 and 4-7 on the road. And also their net is 49, and if that drops just 1 point to 50, I think 50 looks a lot worse than 49. So, unless they win the conference tournament, there's no chance for them to be in. And then if I were to pick a team that I think could possibly move up, I think it's Rutgers.
And so I'm going to talk about Rutgers. Rutgers is 2 different teams. The teams before Mawot Mag's injury was very worthy of a seed, maybe even the 7 seed line. Beat Purdue, beat Indiana at home. They have good wins. Their resume has really good wins. But they're like 2-7 since the young man got hurt with a major comeback, a miracle comeback on there. I just think that the committee is going to look at what team is Rutgers now, and I don't think they're a tournament team now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Rutgers on the outside. Dave, what team do you want to talk about?
I take a look at Arizona State. The net's not that great at 64. They have a losing record in quad 1 and 2 games at 8-10. They also have a bad loss in quad 4. They do have a decent strength of schedule at 57, and they do have some good wins at Arizona and then also against Creighton, some very good teams. But I just don't know if that's enough right now to get Arizona State in.
So there will be a lot of interesting discussions made by the NCAA committee this week, made by the Delphi Bracketology committee starting tomorrow night when we're having pizza and wings over at the house. But stay with us after the break. We'll talk about the Big Ten and some conference tournaments games to watch.
Throw it up for Tillman. Whoa, my goodness. 122.60 for Penn. What a swim. Six of them.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need a managed Wi-Fi service with advanced Blast Wi-Fi. Blast Wi-Fi systems provide ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Available from Mulberry Telecommunications, Blast Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections so you can connect tons of devices throughout your home with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Mulberry Telecommunications is always here to help you should any issues arise. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, and it's a blast. Blast Wi-Fi is now included with Mulberry Telecommunications fiber internet packages. Contact Mulberry Telecommunications at 296-2885 today to get started.
You are watching the Bracket Report, a production of Delphi Bracketology. We are sponsored by Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo. It's now time for our weekly Big Ten talk. We're just going to run through the Big Ten teams and share some quick items about their seed. Dave, start us out.
All right, Purdue is the top Big Ten team. We have them as the 1 seed, and we talked a little bit about their resume a little bit earlier when we were discussing Purdue and UCLA.
Yep. Purdue is going to be, or Indiana is probably locked into the 4 seed. I don't think any of their results, positive or negative, change that.
Yeah, so Michigan State is on the 7 seed right now. They have the best non-conference strength of schedule in the Big Ten at 40 with a good win over Kentucky, and they also have 12 quad 1 and 2 wins, which might even be a little piece on their resume that could move them up.
The next Big Ten team is Northwestern as a 7 seed. They have 7 quad 1 wins, including wins over Purdue and sweeping IU this year, including an 8-5 record, and so they're solidly in the tournament.
Maryland is at the 8 or 9 seed line. They win at home. They don't win away from home. They got to play away from home in the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA. I think that affects their seeding. I'd look more at a 9.
Iowa is also an 8 or 9 seed. They're the only team in the Big Ten with a quad 4 loss besides Ohio State. So I guess the only team that is in the tournament or the bracket that has a quad 4 loss. So that might be a factor that could drop them down to the 9 seed.
The next Big Ten team is Illinois. They're probably on that borderline 8-9 seed. Cade talked about them a little bit earlier in the show, how they're kind of dropping. They have a good net at 33, but they only have 2 quad 1 wins. However, they are over 2 really good teams in UCLA and Texas.
The next team is Penn State at the 11 seed line, and we've talked about them consistently throughout the show. Some might say that they're out. I think they have the most average resume out of the Big Ten, but they are on a little bit of a hot streak here, so hopefully they play well in the tournament.
Rutgers is out due to the injury. They haven't played well since the injury.
We also have Wisconsin as out. They do have a lot of quad 1 wins with 6 quad 1 wins, including a win at Marquette, but they have a net at 78, and we think that keeps them out.
And Michigan. Michigan's also out for us. I think they're a long shot. Some people think they can win 2 or 3 and get in. We think that they are on the outside looking in. So now it's games to watch, and we usually do a game of the week, but there's a lot of games to watch. The conference tournaments are starting. Get that boss button ready. So if your boss comes up, you can just hit it and then go back to the game once your boss leaves. But there's a lot of good games. We're going to kind of run through this and give you kind of a team to look for and maybe an upset as quick as we possibly can. In the American East, look for Vermont to come out on top and maybe UMass Lowell to be an upset team.
In the Mid-Eastern Conference, you have Howard won the conference, so they look to be the favorites. But look out for North Carolina Central. They're on a 7-game win streak.
In the, I'm going to say, SWAC conference, we have Grambling State being the favorite at 15-3, being their conference record, but I think the team to watch is Alabama A&M.
In the Big 12, you look at Kansas, with it being hosted in Kansas City. Kansas tends to play very well there, but really the Big 12 is the toughest conference in the country, and pretty much any team could win that one.
The Mountain West, and that's great basketball. They've had 6 or 7 teams that are very competitive. I think Utah State needs to do well, but I'm looking at San Diego State as the favorite, and maybe Utah State as the upset because they're hungry. I also got the Big East next as well. So the Big East, I think UConn's going to come from the 4 seed and surprise win. Marquette is obviously the favorite, but keep your eyes on Villanova. They made a late run in the regular season.
In the MAC conference, we've been talking about Ball State all year, so we look for Ball State to get the upset win and be in the tournament. But Kent State might be your sleeper favorite to actually win.
The Metro Atlantic, you look for Iona, led by Rick Pitino, to win it, but watch out for Ryder to pull off an upset.
In the ACC conference, Duke might be your sleeper favorite, but I like Miami to win, and then watch Notre Dame to pull off the upset for the Indiana little town.
Notre Dame. I can't let that one go. What, Notre Dame? He really knows what he's talking about. Trust us, young blood over there. Conference USA. Florida Atlantic's had a great year. I want them to win, so they're in, and there's no discussion about them getting an automatic bid. But look for North Texas or Alabama Birmingham to be able to pull off an upset.
For the Big West, it's UC Irvine or UC Santa Barbara to win, but really this is the conference where it's been the most even, so necessarily it's anyone's game.
Got the Pac-12 back-to-back there, buddy.
The Pac-12, we have Arizona to win and maybe Stanford to upset, but Arizona's been playing well consistently throughout the year, and UCLA also been on a hot streak here.
So if you're following Cade and you like to have plus odds, if that is your thing, he gave you a couple of long shots there in Notre Dame and Stanford. Contact your local sportsbook there, Dave.
The next conference is the WAC. Utah Valley won the regular season, so look for them to win the conference tournament. But watch out for Sam Houston State, the Meerkats.
All of those are going to be decided on Saturday. On Sunday, we start with the Ivy League.
Yeah, the Ivy League, Yale is the favorite with maybe Cornell to upset, but in a league where there's only 4 teams, I guess anything could happen.
The A-10, generally a really good conference, has struggled this year. They're likely a one-bid league. Look for VCU to be the favorite and come out of that, but don't be surprised to see St. Louis or Fordham get that bid.
In the SEC, Alabama won the conference, but I'm looking at Texas A&M. They've been playing well. They've been on a hot streak lately. Look for them to win, and I know I can't really consider it an upset, I guess, but Kentucky, with all that talent, could possibly upset some teams.
And you're back-to-back there, Dave, with
the American Conference. Houston is the favorite. They won the conference, but look for if anybody's going to upset them. Memphis played them tough twice this year.
And the Big Ten, I think it's Purdue's conference to lose. But I do think Indiana Northwestern pose in that other bracket have a chance to maybe pop that upset. Always look for an Iowa or Michigan State who can get hot in the Big Ten. So, fellas, as we get ready to make our picks, Cade, what's one thing you're looking forward to doing this week with the NCAA selection coming up?
I'm looking forward to hanging out with all my buddies, just talking basketball in the basement and trying to figure out, what teams are going to get hot and maybe what the committee's going to do and just trying to read their minds.
Dave?
I always look forward to, conference tournament week. It's kind of like the appetizer to the NCAA tournament next week. You can't beat having afternoon basketball. Good thing my prep's in the afternoon and got some projects going on in other classes.
I may or may not be in Chicago. Don't know if I want to. I guess I just did put that out for everyone, covering the Big Ten. And so I'm looking forward to conference tournaments as well. And I'm with Kate. I really enjoy doing this with our group. But that'll do it for this episode of the Bracket Report. Thanks to ISC Sports Network for hosting our show. Thanks to Coca-Cola Bottling for sponsoring our show. Get a hold of us on Twitter. We'll try to answer your questions at Delphi Brackets. And then follow us at our website, delphibracketology.com, for more. So I'm Brian Tonsoni for Cade Nelson and Dave Gilbert. We thank you for watching and hope your team gets seated where you want them to and you're happy on Selection Sunday. Until next week.